remember when Roman Reigns became the super duper mega WWE champion at WrestleMania and we all went, well, I wonder who he's going to face at the next pay-per-view? Well, apparently the answer is nobody. Now I'm sure WWE will sort this eventually, but at the moment it makes no sense, especially when you remember that strange segment with Shinsuke Nakamura. But don't worry about it, we'll get there when we get there. But in the meantime, hello, my name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. It is ups and downs for SmackDown, where we take the finger of power or the fist of power and give the good bits an up when we like something and give the bad bits a down when we don't. You then go in the comments and say, Simon, how did you ever get this job? I go, I don't know, but I have. Let's up those downs. Michael Cole started this week's show by saying it's Friday night and that can only mean one thing, it's SmackDown. And I was like, imagine a world where by the end of the week, all you have is SmackDown. It's kind of terrifying. It was then time for a contract signing. As always, this just leads me to go, well, why is this match getting a contract signing, but none of the other matches do? I guess they're just not that important, and everybody just scrawls the details down on a napkin. This was between Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey with Adam Pearce emceeing. I love Adam Pearce, but I was dying because he explained all of this. He was like, man, we're gonna have a piece of paper, and you just need to write your name down on a line. And I was like, well, thanks for telling me. I assumed they were just gonna go headbutt a wall. They got even better when Adam realised, oh, I don't even have the contract with me, which is when Drew Gulak ran out and we were told he is now trying out to be Adam Pearce's assistant. Ruh-roh. He was all ready to do a presentation too when Charlotte told him to shut the hell up, otherwise she's going to make sure he gets his ass fired again. And I was like, man, Drew Gulak, I don't know how we got here, but we've definitely arrived. Ronda then laughed at Flair for picking on an intern, and honestly, what we should have done here is just place Drew Gulak on a chair and everyone just pointed going, Drew Gulak, you absolute loser. Otherwise, you know the deal. Charlotte said she will win the I Quit match at WrestleMania Backlash. Rousey reminded her, oh, don't forget, you already tapped out at WrestleMania, so on and so forth. They then signed the thing with the table being upended as we learned that Charlotte had hidden a kendo stick under there. And I'm sorry, but that's a very strange thing to do. But it didn't help the Queen at all because actually Ronda was able to get the weapon and she smacked the shit out of her. Drew then tried to stop this. So this week it was Rousey's turn to ruin him because not only did she basically put him in a version of the armbar, but during that, she also got him to pass her a pen so she could sign the contract. Once again, I was like, Drew, do you remember the dreams you had of growing up to be a wrestler? I bet you never thought it'd end like this. I did think he made this whole thing though because he made me laugh, as otherwise, it was just business as usual. I mean, it was fine, it did the job. I don't think it was offensive or anything. We probably could have been a little bit more creative because we only ever do contract signings. But up. Xavier Woods and Butch were then having another match, and I know people get mad at me, but I just can't help it. I understand why my feelings and emotions do these things sometimes, but I just really like Butch. This was doubly entertaining here as well because, of course, Xavier Woods' new thing is that I have a finishing move, which is the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the backwards, and I am going to try and win every single match in my WWE career using it. And for the second time, he went and flub and did it again. But I was more focused on this than anything else, even when they were throwing each other into Alan the announce table, and of course the usual hoopla between Sheamus, Rich Holland and Kofi Kingston. Because if you have a bunch of people at ringside during a wrestling match, they can't help it, they're gonna fight. Also, do not forget this was obviously meant to be a bunch of trios matches before Big E got injured, and as ever, best positive wishes to him. But yeah, after Butch had done some suplexing, Xavier did hit the surprise roll-up. It was announced as this. I went totally crazy, so did the New Day. And honestly, I'm gonna keep everything crossed that we go full in with this, because imagine if he beats people for like a year, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm giving it up. Butch also lost it afterwards and attacked a security guard before running off. Sheamus stood there like a dad, like, man, I can't control my son. As already stated, I find this enjoyable. For better or worse, I don't even know why. The whole story with Aaliyah and Ricochet was they're back on SmackDown. And did one person go, excuse me, where has this been for the last 72 years? Of course they did not. She was just saying, oh, Ricochet, you're so great, I love you so much, when Shanky and Jinder Mahal interrupted. So that is 66 in WWE and 100 interruptions in all of professional wrestling. Woohoo! 100. Oh man, it made a good noise. We finally did it. Sorry about that. Anyway, the whole point of this is that Shanks is now challenging Ricochet for the Intercontinental title, and Jinder kind of looked on the whole time as if he'd left the oven on because he was really, really confused. And to be honest, so was I. Gunther then murdered Teddy Goods. No, you're not meant to know who that is. Because this was just a squash match to underline that Walter/Gunther/whatever you want to call him is an absolute powerhouse, and as ever, one of Bowser's son, Ludwig, introduced him. So he slapped him around, he hit the powerbomb, 1, 2, 3, easy peasy. I do hope we continue this as well, because let's establish this man as a monster and then push him towards the big belts, because honestly, go and watch any Gunther match you possibly can. He can kind of do all of this in his sleep. I mean, he should have been on the main roster years ago. We then had a big happy chat between Randy Orton, Riddle and Drew McIntyre, just to establish that when we do get to our Lumberjack main event later, RK Bro are going to be out there kind of helping Drew. This was all put together by Riddle too, who was basically, Orton, I know you don't like McIntyre, McIntyre, I know you don't like Orton, or at least you had problems in the past when they went, hey man, don't worry about it, let's make up. But when they were feuding, didn't Randy Orton basically say, I want to kill you, Drew McIntyre? And now apparently they're all okay. It soon turned out that Sami Zayn was eavesdropping off in the corner, and he was so pleased he had done this. And at first I was like, well, that makes no sense. But as always with Sami Zayn, he was gonna make it brilliant. And then we had this quick video with Xia Li where she went, man, I thought I wanted to protect some people, but now I've decided I just want to protect myself. So one, I was 100% correct with this because I said she couldn't be bothered to help anybody, and now she's admitted it. And two, what a crappy superhero. Imagine you reading Superman, you're like, oh man, Superman, you're so integral and you have such a good moral code. And then you got to the end, you went, no, bruh, I'm gonna let you all die. So this was an absolute riot, especially because during her time on SmackDown, I think Xia saved one person. So she sucks. This was terrible by WWE. I don't know what they're doing. Down. Riddle versus Jey Uso was next though, and while this feud has been stretched out, these guys still making it work. They zoomed through it as well because they are top wrestlers and they like to work at a pace. And basically, given the day, this was essentially Pat McAfee just making 420 jokes. Jey was also trolling because at one point he grabbed Riddle and hit a back suplex onto Alan the announce table. Basically looked at Randy Orton all like, ha ha ha, I stole your move. And then when they got back in the ring, they started to smack the shit out of each other, which is just the way in 2022 wrestling. Riddle eventually fought back and hit the draping DDT, and this excited Orton so much he grabbed Jimmy Uso and he gave him a back suplex on Alan the announce table, but then back in the ring, Jey was able to get the upper hand and he went for his big splash. This seemed to be done though, but Riddle got his knees up at the last minute before he hit a variation of the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, and he got the win. Now all of this was well put together, but come on, if Xavier Woods has decided to make it his finishing move, can't we just have a little bit of respite throughout the rest of the card for at least a couple of months? Let him do the best he can with it. Now I am still going to give it an up, but you listen to me, WWE. I am keeping my eyes on this. Xavier has come up with the greatest plan ever, and he must be allowed to execute it. We also saw Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman watching this from the back, and when his boys did lose, he was not happy. But let's be honest, he actually never is. They got a whole segment dedicated to the women's tag team titles, which surprised me, because don't forget, usually what WWE does with this is totally forget it. Now, this still may very well happen because there are no teams, but let's just take what we can get. And it was mostly Sasha Banks and Naomi saying, oh man, we're so great, we're the best, everybody come give us some cake, when of course they were interrupted, this time by Shayna Baszler and Natalya. So bring it down, that is 67 interruptions in WWE and 101 overall. But of course it was Natalya and Shayna Baszler. I mean, quite literally, who else would it be? There ain't no other team. This was mostly Shayna just pushing Sasha Banks over though, like they were in school. And when Banks wanted to attack her, Naomi held her back. And I was like, why are you doing that, Naomi? Surely you want to beat these fools up. I'm not gonna lie, the whole time I was kind of thinking to myself, probably shouldn't split up Shotzi and Knox. They would fit into this nicely. So I would suppose you'd call this average, but it was certainly okay. Up. And then, oh boy. Because I get that Madcap Moss is on his face turn right now, and we saw him backstage here when Happy Coleman came up to him and said, look, we fell out a little bit, we got off on the wrong foot, why don't we get back together? And while Madcap pretended he was going to do this, Instead, he made a joke about the fact that Baron is bald. So that is that. I now officially have Baron Corbin's back. You think we want this, Madcap Moss? No, we don't. It happens to us and we have to deal with it. Now, I'm just going to calm down. I'm going to take a breath. But you know, us bald a-holes have to stick together. We also then got a video for Raquel Rodriguez, which scares me massively, because we're already doing this after she's already debuted a few weeks ago. She's also clearly been told to smile the whole time. Seriously, I like Raquel. Let's just hope it works out okay. Moss was then facing Angel, given that he beat Humberto last week, and he won. Took around about 2 minutes, of course. We also had a bunch of nonsense with the Andre the Giant trophy and Los Lotharios doing their kiss cams, and then they had a fight. Humberto tried to interfere, but he is Chumberto, so it didn't work. Madcap hit the punchline. 1, 2, 3, done. We did make sure that we continued to build to WrestleMania Backlash 2, though, because afterwards Corbin did come out. He was like, listen to me, you fool head. He smashed him with the End of Days, and then he got that Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy, and he just ran off. Now, I have no idea what he's going to do with it. You can't pawn this off because they'll be like, well, I know that's not yours. I saw what you did on TV. But I just think this storyline is so simple and it's doing what we need to do. It is building a brand new star, even though he doesn't want to take the mick out of bald people, but the point is up. We then saw Sami Zayn thinking about going into Roman Reigns' locker room, and I was like Darth Vader or no. When we did go inside, basically, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso were like, Jey, why'd you lose, you absolute piece of scum? This is when Paul Heyman told them all, Sami Zayn wants to see you, and Zayn did get in there, and actually what he'd done was inspired, because he'd heard this conversation between Drew McIntyre, Riddle, and Randy Orton, where they had disparaged the bloodline. He just went, listen, Roman, you're the head of the table, I acknowledge you, these assholes were calling out your family, maybe you want to help me out. Obviously, Roman could not handle any of this because he was like, how dare they say anything about me, and promised that he would assist. I was like, good work, Sami. Good work. We then got more of these videos focusing on the Lacey Evans story, and do not forget, everything she's saying is actually what happened to her, so I think these are working tremendously well, and we found out when we get to Raw on Monday, we're gonna celebrate 20 years of Randy Orton. You just know something crazy gonna happen then. It was then time for our main event, and I won't lie, I did get a little bit confused. Because the whole point of a lumberjack match, which is what this was, is to keep the wrestlers in the ring and stop them running away. So how did it end? With a no contest, I think, after Sami Zayn ran away. I mean, it was fine at first because Sami tried to do this, but all the good guy lumberjacks were like, no, you have to get back in the ring. And when he was in the squared circle, Drew McIntyre just beat him up. We then had some good guy lumberjacks taking on bad guy lumberjacks because we have to do that. And honestly, this did kind of underline that SmackDown needs more bodies because there was barely anybody out there. And sooner rather than later, this basically boiled down to RK Bro versus the Usos again. For they were the most prominent lumberjacks, so when they tried to do their jobs, they got into a massive fight. That triggered a huge brawl for some reason, and Drew was just like, well, I'm sick of this. So he did one of those majestic dives over the top rope, and he basically took out everyone. This is when Zayn realized, oh man, I can just get out of Dodge, so he did. And Adam Pearce was out here like lightning, and he was like, well, I never thought I'd see the day somebody would run away from a lumberjack. So next week, we're gonna do Drew and Sami round 97 or whatever it is, but this time, it's gonna be in a steel cage. So I have absolutely no idea what is going on, and of all the people, Jinder Mahal and Shanky then tried to beat up Drew McIntyre, but Jinder got hit with the Claymore kick to send everybody home happy. And I presume this is leading to Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns, because that was the tease. But what a strange way to get there. Otherwise, once again, like, it was okay. I didn't watch this and go, man, this is bad wrestling, so I will give it an up. But my word, am I a confused panda. We do need to throw in one final down though before we do leave this week's SmackDown, because one of the lumberjacks was Shinsuke Nakamura. Nobody mentioned him getting beaten up by Roman Reigns. He didn't look like he cared that he got beat up by Roman Reigns. So why did we do it? Just so we could twonk Shinsuke? That seems ridiculous. Down. Which did bring us to the end of another episode of SmackDown, and like I've kind of said throughout this one, it was fine. It was okay. It just feels a little bit misguided, like WWE doesn't actually know what they do want to do at WrestleMania Backlash. It's a positive show, so if you do give me an average adventure, I shall give you an up. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And then go check out the channel because Rampage Ups and Downs will be out later and you want to make sure you've ticked every box. Also, come read a bunch more articles on WhatCulture.com and remember to follow us on social media. My name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me on this very oddly warm Saturday. I am sweating. You didn't need to know that. Goodbye.